He was halfway through his wedding vows when the chapel doors creaked open. The silence that followed could have broken glass. All eyes turned, and standing there in a winter coat, holding a little girl's hand, was the woman he hadn't seen in 3 years. His first wife, his daughter, and the empire his mother built began to crack. Geneva Vale didn't raise a son. She raised a successor. Every morning at the Vale estate started the same. Coffee brewed at 5 a.m., sharp. Her staff walked on marble like it was glass. Cassian Vale, her only child, had a personal trainer by age 6, a financial planner by 10, and a speaking coach by 11. She called it preparing him for the throne. He called it silence. Cassian grew up under the weight of chandeliers and press cameras. While other boys broke bones on football fields, he was learning tax law and power optics. Geneva molded him to fit a suit before he ever had a say in the cut. Vale Properties wasn't just their family name. It was a multinational empire worth $14 billion, a pillar of downtown Chicago's skyline and Geneva's entire identity. She didn't trust anyone. Not her board, not her executives, only Cassian, and he knew it. Because Geneva reminded him every time he tried to make a choice for himself. "Your name isn't just yours," she told him. "It's an asset. Use it wisely, or I'll protect it myself." Cassian Vale looked like the man everyone wanted to be. 31, tall, athletic, dark, styled hair, sharp jaw, tailored suits from Italy, real estate mogul, mastermind behind Vale's high-rise expansion across Asia. When he entered a room, people stood straighter, like success itself had walked in. But no one saw what Ira Callan once saw, the hollow behind his smile. His schedule was tight. Every handshake was calculated. His apartment was spotless, not because he cleaned, but because he was never home long enough to live in it. And when the world praised Geneva's discipline for raising such a strong, focused man, they didn't know he hadn't made a single decision about his own life since he was 15. Until her. Ira Callan wore soft sweaters and sketch-stained jeans. She wasn't the type who flirted her way through the office. She worked, design department, freelance background, no trust fund, no last name that meant anything. She took the subway, made her own coffee, showed up 5 minutes early and left an hour late. When Cassian first noticed her in a floor meeting, she was standing against the wall, holding a rolled-up architectural sketch. She didn't speak unless spoken to, but she watched everything, like the quietest person in the room usually does. A week later, he requested her to join his project review. "Bring her portfolio," he told his assistant, and clear 20 minutes. They stayed for 2 hours. Within 3 months, Ira went from intern to lead designer on Vale's Chicago Riverwalk project. Her ideas were clean, her presence unshakably calm. And Cassian began to do the one thing Geneva warned him never to do. He leaned on someone who didn't wear his last name. At first, it was subtle. He'd call her after hours, ask for her thoughts, stop by the creative floor even when he had no meetings there. The office whispered. Geneva noticed. She summoned him for breakfast. He walked in. She was already seated, pearls at her throat, tablet in hand, espresso untouched. "This Ira," she said without looking up. "Is she sleeping with you?" Cassian's jaw clenched. "She's helping redesign the Riverwalk's mixed-use floor plan." Geneva looked up slowly. "So not a denial. She's talented. That's all you need to know." Geneva smiled without warmth. "No, darling. What I need to know is when you're going to stop thinking this is about you." Cassian started changing. He skipped events Geneva arranged, declined interviews, started hosting project teams at off-site locations. Once, he and Ira took a week off, no warning, and disappeared to a small coastal town in Oregon to study sustainable eco-resorts. The press caught a photo of them barefoot on a beach, Cassian in rolled-up slacks, Ira laughing, hand in his. Geneva nearly cancelled her board meeting when she saw it. "You don't fall in love," she told him coldly. "You rise into legacy." He looked her in the eyes for the first time in months. I'm already in love. The next day, they eloped. No cameras, no announcement, just two people in a courthouse, signing papers that said, mine. Geneva received a call from a junior legal assistant 3 days later. Ma'am, there's been a change to Cassian's marital status on the corporate records. The assistant paused. It says, he's married. Geneva dismissed the entire floor that day, sent every employee home. She sat at her glass desk, poured a drink, then called her son. You married her behind my back. I married her because I love her. She's going to ruin you. Cassian didn't yell. He didn't plead. I've built your towers, signed every contract you put in front of me. But this was mine to choose. Her voice dropped to a whisper. You'll regret choosing her over me. Cassian ended the call. And for a moment, Geneva Vale, the woman who negotiated billion-dollar deals in 6-inch heels, sat completely still. Because she knew love had entered her empire, and that meant war. Their marriage lived in pockets. A corner booth in a jazz cafe where no one recognized them. A hidden cabin in the woods with no internet. An apartment above a bookstore where the world didn't know Cassian Vale existed. That's where they built a home, not a stage. A space without photographers, suits, or signatures. There was no ring on her finger at work. No social post. No announcement in the press. Not out of shame, out of necessity. If Geneva Vale caught scent of permanence, she'd bulldoze it like any old building standing in her way. At home, Cassian was someone else. He didn't bark orders or fold into silence like at the board table. He laughed, poorly cooked, and stayed up drawing floor plans for eco-lodges with Ira on their living room rug. He told her about boarding school, about growing up in houses too large for a boy to ever feel safe in. Ira, in return, told him about her small-town upbringing and her father's flower shop. They talked like people who were falling in love for the first time, even though they'd already married in a courthouse with no witness but the clerk. But outside their hideaway, tension gathered like frost on the windows. Geneva didn't confront them with fury. She moved in calculated silence. First, Ira's internship was terminated. Budget cuts, they said. No meetings, no review. One email on a Friday evening, just as Cassian was flying back from a site visit in Tokyo. When Ira told him, he didn't speak. He opened his laptop, pulled up the HR records, and saw his mother's initials beside the directive. He called her. You had no right. You gave me every right the day you let her near your projects. She was my wife before you even acknowledged her as an employee. Then she shouldn't be in my company at all. You mean our company? No, Cassian, Geneva said coldly. You married beneath the brand, and that makes this war. He didn't speak to her for 3 weeks after that. Ira didn't break. She applied for external firms. She received offers. One firm offered her double her internship pay and a creative lead role in New York. She turned it down. I want to stay, she told Cassian. Even if they erase my desk, I still choose you. That sentence broke him. She chose him over her dream career, over pride, over the bitterness Geneva kept feeding their story. But not even love was enough to erase Geneva's reach. That winter, the annual Vale Foundation Gala returned. 1,000 guests, governors, business elites, fashion icons, always held at the Vale Estate Ballroom. Cassian never liked those events, but Geneva insisted. Appearances matter, she always said. The media is more loyal than blood when fed properly. 2 weeks before the event, Geneva's assistant sent Cassian a formal please reply notice. His name was listed on the press release. Beneath the line for +1 guest, one name had been handwritten in blue ink. Adeline Maris. Cassian closed the envelope without finishing the rest. He didn't attend. Geneva told the press he was handling an expansion project in Dubai. Cameras flooded her side of the ballroom, flashing images of her laughing with Adeline in a sapphire gown. Ira watched the live stream from their couch, barefoot, a cup of tea resting on her knee. That's the dress she designed for that fashion gala last spring, Ira said. Cassian didn't respond. Ira paused the stream. On the screen, Geneva's hand lightly resting on Adeline's arm. Two women, smiling like family. She's replacing me publicly now. He didn't deny it. She turned off the screen. How long before you start to believe I'm the mistake? I don't. But you're surrounded by people who do. Every day. One morning you might forget the reason you fought for me. He leaned forward, touched her hand. I married you because I love you. Not because you were easy to protect. Ira didn't cry. She just stood, kissed his temple, and went to bed early. Cassian sat alone for hours. The next morning, Ira found a plain white envelope at their doorstep. No stamp, no handwriting. Inside was a printed note. You don't belong in this bloodline. Walk away while your dignity is still intact. She didn't show it to Cassian until days later. When she did, he closed the paper, folded it once, then twice again, and placed it in a drawer with other things they never spoke of. The cracks began then. Little things. Cassian missing dinner without notice. Late-night board meetings. Ira waking alone more mornings than not. One night, after back-to-back overseas calls, he walked in exhausted, loosened his tie, and said nothing for 5 minutes. Just stood in the kitchen doorway. Ira, seated at the table with untouched soup, finally asked, "Was it your mother?" He nodded slowly. "She's threatening my shares. If I don't cooperate with a merger she wants, she'll move to legally restructure the voting rights on the board. I could lose everything." Ira held his gaze. "What does cooperate mean?" He didn't answer, just dropped into the chair and closed his eyes. She asked again, "Does it mean divorce?" He flinched. She nodded. That night, they slept back to back. Ira left for the weekend. She told him she needed space. Not to leave, but to breathe. He didn't stop her. She stayed with a friend in a one-bedroom apartment in Lakeview. There, with the soft hum of city life around her, she allowed herself to imagine a future without Cassian. Not out of bitterness, but for survival. That Monday morning, she received an email from a firm in St. Louis. They offered her a position, flexible hours, full design control, no strings. It felt like a door swinging open after years of knocking. She accepted. She returned to the apartment that evening. Cassian was asleep on the couch, still in yesterday's suit, eyes swollen. Phone on the floor beside him. Missed calls, news alerts. She stepped over quietly, crouched beside him, and held his hand. He didn't wake. She took one last look around. The apartment still had her drawings pinned to the wall. The kitchen still had her herbs on the sill. But it didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a waiting room for pain. That night, she packed lightly. No farewell speech, no dramatic exit. Just a folded note on the table. "This isn't because I don't love you. I love you more than I thought I could love anyone. But I can't live where I have to be erased to make you whole. You deserve to choose your future freely, and I deserve to be chosen without shame. Goodbye, my husband." She didn't tell him about the child, because she knew if she did, he'd follow her. He'd fight, and she wasn't sure they'd survive that war. Ira left Chicago at dawn, and Geneva called a silent press release later that week. Cassian Vale is no longer married. No further details. No mentions of Ira. No corrections. Just a clean line through a love story she'd never approved. The city she ran to was quiet. St. Louis didn't ask questions. It didn't flash lights in her face or print headlines about her last name. It let her walk into a small studio apartment with a baby in her arms and no explanation. Ira Callan gave birth on a cold March morning. The nurses offered to call someone, a partner, a father, a friend. She told them she was fine. The baby didn't cry much, just opened her eyes like she'd been here before. Calm, alert, wise. She named her Kayla, a name that meant fortress, because that's what she would need to be. Ira used her savings to cover the hospital bills. Then she got to work. She took freelance design contracts. She sketched floor plans at night while Kayla slept beside her crib. She worked from libraries, coffee shops, laundromats, anywhere with Wi-Fi and quiet. She never touched the severance Geneva wired to her account. She transferred it to a separate bank, out of reach. She wanted nothing Vale-funded near her child's life. When Kayla turned 6 months, Ira began teaching art part-time at a local after-school program. Not glamorous, but it gave them stability. The apartment had peeling paint and a noisy heater. But it had sunlight in the mornings and a back porch where Kayla could play with sidewalk chalk. And at night, Ira would wrap her in a soft blanket and whisper stories about a man who built towers in cities far away, a man who loved clean lines, good music, and someone who made him soup on late nights. Kayla didn't know the man's name, but when she smiled, Ira saw his eyes. Time passed quietly. 2 years, then 3. Kayla started asking questions. Why don't I have a daddy like Micah? Can we call him? Did he get lost? Ira never lied. But she didn't tell the whole truth either. He didn't know about you, she'd say gently. And I wasn't sure he'd be allowed to. Kayla didn't cry. She nodded, like she understood something much bigger than her years allowed. And every once in a while she'd take Ira's phone and pretend to call him. Hi, I'm your kid. I like mangoes and stories and buildings. Bye. Ira would laugh, then cry quietly once Kayla fell asleep. Back in Chicago, Geneva was rebuilding Cassian's public image. She had spun his annulled marriage as a youthful mistake, nothing permanent. A brief emotional lapse during a period of stress. Cassian didn't argue. He didn't correct the papers. He didn't explain. He buried himself in work. Asia expansion. Dubai contracts. A 5-tower project in Toronto. He stopped coming home. Stopped answering personal texts. His apartment in the Vale estate sat untouched. He became the CEO Geneva always wanted. Cold, efficient, alone. But she still wasn't satisfied. She began grooming a match. Adeline Maris, daughter of one of Geneva's oldest business allies. Polished, political science background, spoke 3 languages, attended the same prep schools Cassian had. She knew how to smile without revealing thoughts. Knew how to walk beside a man without stepping ahead or falling behind. She was everything Geneva thought a Vale wife should be. She placed them together at board dinners, asked Adeline to accompany her on charity projects, leaked curated photos to the press. Cassian didn't resist. He didn't say yes either. He just stayed silent. And silence, Geneva knew, was a yes she could shape. Ira saw the photo by accident. She was scrolling through a design blog when a banner ad popped up. Cassian Vale and Adeline Maris to announce engagement? She froze. There he was. Cassian, in a black tuxedo, hand resting at the small of Adeline's back. Both of them facing a sea of cameras, teeth-perfect smiles. Her breath caught. Kayla looked up from her drawing. Mummy, what's that? Ira turned off the screen. Nothing important. But Kayla had seen the man's face, and later that night she drew 2 stick figures holding hands, one tall, one short, and wrote in crooked letters, "Me plus him." Ira couldn't sleep. The thought wouldn't let her go. He didn't know. He still didn't know. The wedding announcement went public the following week. Private estate ceremony, invite only. Top architects, media giants, political elites. Geneva's way of sealing the legacy. Ira stared at the article. There were hundreds of reasons not to go. No invitation, no security clearance, no protection. But only one reason pushed her to pack a small bag, dress Kayla in a soft, beige coat, and board a 7-hour bus back to Chicago, her daughter. She wouldn't be erased. Not again. Ira didn't plan to make a scene. She just wanted him to see, to look her in the eyes, in front of the world, and decide what he wanted his legacy to be. They arrived the morning of the wedding. Cold, grey sky. Light snow on the pavement. Ira booked a motel 20 minutes from the Vale estate. She braided Kayla's curls gently, humming the tune Cassian used to play on the piano late at night. You ready to meet him? She asked softly. Kayla looked up. I already know him. Ira's breath caught. She buttoned Kayla's coat, pulled her gloves on, then stood up straight. The clock read 3:12 p.m. The wedding started at 4. They left the room, and Ira walked back into the city that had buried her. The Vale estate looked like it had been carved from a winter dream. Rows of ice-sculpted swans flanked the entrance. Hundreds of white roses framed the arched glass doors. Inside, the grand ballroom had been transformed into a snow globe fantasy. Soft white light, silver runners, chandeliers like frozen stars. Every detail had Geneva's fingerprint. Cameras clicked, non-stop. The media hovered like hawks, staying within the velvet ropes. Guests in gowns and tuxedos sipped champagne under floating arrangements of orchids and winterberries. But Cassian Vale didn't smile. He stood at the altar, his jaw tight, shoulders set, face unreadable. He looked like a groom in a hostage video. Adeline walked in beside her father, poised and flawless. Her gown shimmered, fitted to perfection. Her hair swept into an elegant knot. She smiled at him. Cassian didn't return it. He barely moved. Geneva watched from the front row, satisfied. Everything had gone exactly as planned, until it didn't. The chapel doors opened with a quiet creak. At first, no one noticed. The music was still playing. The priest had just asked Cassian to repeat the vow. But then came the hush. Not a loud crash, not a scream. Just the slow, stunned silence of 500 heads turning in unison. Ira stood in the doorway, hair tied back, long winter coat zipped to her chin. Snowflakes clung to her lashes. In one hand, she held a small suitcase. In the other, she held her daughter's hand. Kayla stood beside her in a cream coat and boots with little buckles. She stared ahead, wide-eyed, curious, unafraid. The room stopped breathing. Even the violins halted. Cassian dropped the vow card. Geneva stood. Adeline froze, and Ira stepped inside. She didn't speak until she was halfway down the aisle. Then softly, calmly, her voice carried. "You left something behind." Kayla gripped her hand tighter but said nothing. Cassian's entire body stilled. His mouth parted, but no words came out. The press began snapping photos, phones raised. Security moved, but Geneva gestured sharply, stopping them. Ira reached the altar. She looked at Cassian, at Geneva, then back to Cassian. "This is your daughter." Gasps rippled. Kayla blinked slowly and lifted her chin. "I'm Kayla." Cassian took a step forward. His knees looked unsteady. He stared at the little girl with his mother's eyes and Ira's mouth. He knelt, and for the first time in his life, Cassian Vale didn't care who was watching. "How old are you?" he asked. Kayla tilted her head. 3. His voice cracked. "What's your favorite story?" "The one about the man who builds cities but forgets his heart." He looked at Ira, trembling. "You told her about me. She asked about you every day." He reached forward, hands shaking. "May the 1st. Ira nodded. Kayla stepped forward and wrapped her arms around his neck. Cassian held her like something he was afraid to break. Geneva stood frozen. Adeline turned away, humiliated. The press clicked furiously, but Cassian didn't move. He stood with Kayla in his arms and looked at Ira. "Why didn't you tell me?" "I tried. I would have." "Your mother made sure I disappeared." He didn't ask how. He knew what Geneva was capable of. His voice was barely a whisper. "I looked for you." Ira nodded. "I know." Then Cassian turned to the crowd. He faced the guests, the board members, the politicians, the media, still holding Kayla. "This is my daughter." No script, no permission, no pre-cleared statement. "My name is Cassian Vale, and 3 years ago, I made the only decision in my life that wasn't controlled. I married someone not for legacy, not for optics, but for love." He reached for Ira's hand, and I never stopped. Adeline dropped her bouquet and walked off the stage. Her father followed, red-faced. Geneva remained seated. She didn't blink, didn't speak. Ira met her gaze calmly. Geneva finally rose and stepped toward them. Cassian didn't flinch. Geneva's voice was sharp, low. "You're destroying everything I built." Cassian looked her in the eye. "No, I'm choosing what I want to build." The wedding never happened. The guests left. The media feasted. Geneva retreated into silence, and Cassian, Ira, and Kayla left the estate as a family, together. No cars, no escort, just a man, a woman, and a child walking through snow, hand in hand. That night, in a quiet hotel miles from the estate, Ira tucked Kayla into bed. Cassian stood at the window, watching the snowfall. "You still have time to walk away," Ira said quietly. He turned. "I lost you once. I won't again." Ira walked toward him. Her eyes didn't waver. "This won't be easy. Your mother, she's not the one I'm building with." Ira rested her head on his chest. "I wasn't planning to come today." "I'm glad you did. You looked miserable." "I was," Kyla mumbled in her sleep. Cassian smiled. "She looks like you when she's calm. She looks like you when she's stubborn." They laughed, and for the first time in years, it wasn't bitter, it was real. If you believe love doesn't need permission, if you believe a child deserves the truth, and if you believe a man choosing his daughter over legacy is the real power move, then you're watching the right story. Comment your favorite moment so far. Share this with someone who knows what it means to fight for what matters. And subscribe now, because in Chapter 3, the Empire fights back. This is Mr. Charles' Stories. And we don't tell fairy tales. We tell the truth. Geneva Vale didn't shout. She didn't throw anything, slam a door, or cry into her designer pillows. When the wedding collapsed in front of international press, she sat perfectly still. In her private suite at the Vale estate, untouched champagne bubbling beside her, she watched the footage again. Cassian, holding that child, calling her daughter, and choosing Ira in front of everyone Geneva had groomed for approval. She stared at the screen, quiet, calculating. Then she pressed a button on the intercom. "Get the legal team, now." The next morning, news outlets flooded with headlines. Billionaire groom walks out mid-vow, secret daughter revealed. Geneva Vale silent after son's public family bombshell. Ira Callan returns with child. Was she ever truly gone? The internet erupted. Some called it a love story, others a scandal, and some investors called it exactly what Geneva feared, a threat. Vale Properties stock dipped 3.6% within 2 days. Her phones rang non-stop. Board members, PR agents, donors. But Geneva didn't pick up. She was drafting something more effective than denial, control. Cassian hadn't slept. They stayed in a boutique hotel off the grid. No press, no guards, just 3 people and a borrowed piece. Kyla woke up giggling. She jumped onto Cassian's chest and started drawing on his arm with a pink marker Ira packed in her bag. He didn't move, just watched her, studied the way she chewed her lip when focused, just like he did. "You really didn't know," Ira whispered from the doorway. "I swear, I didn't plan to tell you like that." "I'm glad you did." She came closer. "You have to know, your mother gave me no choice." He nodded. "I believe you." Ira sat at the edge of the bed. "She threatened to ruin my father, my work, my name. You were about to inherit the company. I didn't want to be the reason you lost everything." Cassian looked at her. "I lost more by not knowing." They sat in silence. Kayla hummed as she drew clouds on his sleeve. That afternoon, Geneva made her move. A formal letter was delivered to their hotel room, a Vale Properties envelope. Inside, a summons. Geneva Vale versus Ira Callan request for immediate paternity testing. Petition for limited contact with minor Kayla Callan until court resolution. And a non-defamation clause demand. Signed and dated. Cassian's hands curled around the paper. "She's suing you." Ira stared at the document. Face unreadable. Her voice flat. "She's denying Kayla is yours. She knows. She doesn't care." Cassian turned to his phone. "Who are you calling?" "My lawyer." Ira reached out. "Wait." He paused. "She wants us reactive. If we show weakness, she drags this into headlines again. She's already there. She wants to drag me through court, publicly, turn me into a gold digger and you into a reckless heir." Cassian ran a hand through his hair. "I'll fight her. You'll lose your shares." He turned to Ira. "Then I'll build new ones." Cassian made the first move. He drafted a public statement. "Recent events have brought personal truths to light. I confirm Kayla Callan is my daughter, and I stand by my decision to acknowledge and honor my responsibilities as a father. The privacy of my family matters more than legacy politics. I will not participate in any campaign that questions the integrity of the woman who raised my child while I was left uninformed." He posted it from his verified account. Within hours, it had over 1 million shares. The stock dipped again, and Geneva went silent. For now. They moved into a rental apartment in Oak Park. Modest, clean, secure. Cassian left the Vale estate for good. Packed only what he needed. He wanted to move slowly. Learn how to be a father without a script. Read bedtime stories. Burn pancakes. Drive to preschool drop-offs. Ira watched him closely. He wasn't pretending. He wasn't perfect either. He forgot Kayla's favorite spoon, bought the wrong kind of juice, sometimes got overwhelmed by toddler noise. But he tried, and Ira realized that the man she married hadn't died in the war Geneva waged. He was just waiting for peace to come back. But peace never lasts. Not when power isn't finished with you. The first threat came through a headline. Cassian Vale's alleged daughter. Timeline doesn't match. A carefully placed story. Subtle enough not to scream defamation, but sharp enough to seed doubt. The article quoted anonymous insiders, hinted at Cassian's emotional state during the original timeline, and painted Ira as a woman who disappeared without explanation, only to reappear with a child. It wasn't an accident. It was Geneva's first real swing. Ira saw the article while walking Kayla to daycare. Her phone buzzed with the link just as her daughter kissed her cheek and ran toward the entrance with her backpack bouncing. Ira stared at the screen. Her chest tightened. She didn't cry. She forwarded it to Cassian. He replied with 2 words, handled, "Tonight." That night, Cassian called an emergency meeting. Not with lawyers, not with PR, with the board. They gathered in a sleek, cold conference room on the 42nd floor of Vale Properties HQ. Geneva didn't attend. Cassian arrived in jeans and a black sweater. No tie, no suit, just himself. He stood at the head of the table and laid down a file. Personal decisions are being used as leverage. No one responded. "I'm not defending my family. I'm informing you. This is the last time Vale Properties will weaponize my private life." One of the board members cleared his throat. "She's not just any woman, Cassian. She's your mother. And that doesn't give her ownership of my daughter's name." He paused. "My lawyers have advised me that stepping down would clear conflict lines. So I will." Gasps. "I'm resigning as executive vice president, effective immediately." "You'd walk away?" another member asked, stunned. Cassian nodded. "I'd rather build legacy from love than inherit it from control." He left without waiting for a vote. Geneva arrived 10 minutes later, saw the empty seat, the board's shaken expressions. She sat down, calm as ever. One woman whispered, "He really left." Geneva didn't flinch. "Let him build something new. We'll see how high it stands." Back at the apartment, Ira was waiting. Cassian stepped in, his hair damp from snow, his hands cold. He looked at her with a strange stillness in his eyes. "I stepped down." She blinked. "You did. I won't let her pit the company against our daughter. That boardroom wasn't a throne, it was a cage." Ira sat down slowly. "That means you have nothing left in Vale." He dropped his keys in the bowl and knelt to untie his boots. "I have everything I didn't have before." He glanced down the hall, toward Kayla's room. She was asleep, hugging a stuffed elephant. "She's what I want." Ira didn't speak. She stood, crossed the room, wrapped her arms around him. He exhaled. "Do you still believe in me?" He whispered. "I never stopped. I just stopped fighting battles I wasn't invited into." His voice cracked. "You're invited now." The next morning, Ira went to see someone she hadn't spoken to in 3 years. Her father, he still owned the flower shop back in her hometown, the place where she used to sweep petals off the floor and fix display vases. He had aged. More white hair, slower steps, but his eyes widened the moment she walked in, holding Kayla's hand. "Is that—" Ira smiled softly. "Her name's Kayla." He fell to his knees, choked with emotion. "You look just like her mother," he said, eyes wet. Sailor reached out and touched his face. "Are you my grandpa?" He nodded. And Ira saw in that moment that healing didn't always come from the person who broke you. Sometimes it came from who stood beside you when you rebuilt. Back in Chicago, Geneva planned her next move. She offered Cassian a buyout, his shares for silence. He refused. She offered an estate property if he'd leave Ira and take back his role. He refused again. She leaked a rumor that Ira forged documents. It didn't land. The internet was no longer on her side. For the first time in her life, Geneva Vale lost the war of narrative. And in silence, Ira sent a letter, a printed, signed custody agreement, naming Cassian as full co-guardian. No court, no fight, just trust. Cassian read it twice. "You're giving me joint rights?" Ira looked him in the eye. "You're her father." He choked on a breath. "I don't deserve this. You deserve her. You always did." They hugged. Long. Quiet. Real. And something in both of them began to shift. Not back to what they were, but forward, into what they could be. Geneva hadn't spoken to her son in over 3 weeks. Not since he stepped down. Not since his name stopped appearing in board briefings and financial updates. She read the reports anyway. Each one reminded her that control was slipping, and not because of some strategic blunder, but because of one woman, Ira. Geneva didn't see her as a threat at first. She was background noise, a simple design intern, soft-spoken, poor, easy to erase. Now, she had become the one thing Geneva never saw coming, unshakable. She didn't whine to the press, didn't respond to tabloids, didn't seek attention. She raised her daughter quietly, held Cassian's hand quietly, broke Geneva's empire quietly, and Geneva hated silence she couldn't control. So she aimed at what Ira valued most, not Cassian, Kayla. Ira noticed the first change in preschool. The teacher, Miss Kenner, stopped smiling at pickup. Usually warm and chatty, she now avoided eye contact. When Ira finally asked if something was wrong, the woman hesitated before pulling her aside. I received a call last week, an anonymous concern about Kayla's home environment." Ira froze. "What concern?" Miss Kenner's voice lowered. "They claimed she was being raised around instability, public scandal. Implied you were using her for financial gain." Ira's chest tightened. "Geneva. She's fine," Miss Kenner added quickly. "Kayla's bright, happy, articulate. We didn't act on it, but we had to log the report." Ira nodded slowly. She picked up Kayla, kissed her forehead, and walked home without saying a word. That night, she didn't sleep. Geneva wasn't done. She was just getting creative. Meanwhile, Cassian was adjusting to life outside the empire. He joined a small architecture and sustainability firm, ironically, one Ira had once considered. He asked to start at project level. No executive perks, no name leverage. He wanted to earn respect, not inherit it. It was strange for him. No assistants scheduling every second, no cars waiting outside. Just coffee runs, brainstorms and deadlines. Ira watched him work late from their shared kitchen table, Kayla asleep down the hall. "Do you regret it?" she asked one night. "Which part?" "Leaving the company. Your name. All of it." He shook his head. "I don't regret choosing peace." "You sure?" Cassian leaned back and looked at her. "I've never breathed this freely." Ira smiled. Then her face turned serious. "She's going after Kayla." He blinked. "What?" She called the school, tried to make it look like a neglect case. Cassian's jaw tightened. "She won't stop unless we make her." Ira exhaled. "Then let's make her stop." The next morning, Ira made an appointment with a lawyer. Not for Cassian, for herself. She filed for legal reinforcement of parental rights, sole custody for the years. Geneva interfered, with documented evidence of coercion and forced separation. She listed the cafe meeting, the threats, the blackmail, the sudden cut-off from the company. She included the preschool report. The lawyer, a sharp woman named Lyra Falk, leaned back and said, "You're not going for protection." Ira's tone didn't shift. "I'm going for accountability." When the legal notice landed on Geneva's desk, she read it 3 times. The silence in her office could crack a stone. She placed it down, then picked up her phone. "Find out who Ira Callan hired, and tell Cassian, if he wants to pick a fight, I won't swing lightly." But when she reached for his contact, her finger paused. She didn't call, because deep down she knew. This wasn't about Cassian anymore. Ira wasn't hiding behind him. Ira was standing in front of her. The meeting wasn't planned. It wasn't on any calendar. No assistants, no press, no scheduled lunch at the estate. Ira requested it privately, through her lawyer, a closed-door conversation. No media, no board, just the 3 of them. Cassian, Ira, Geneva. And for the first time in years, Geneva didn't say no. She chose the venue, a private room in a glass-walled tower that overlooked the lake. Her territory, her tone, her message. She arrived first, alone, dressed in a structured grey suit, not a wrinkle out of place. No jewelry but the wedding ring she hadn't taken off in 20 years. She sat at the center of the table, back straight, chin up. Ira entered second. No entourage, just a navy coat, hair in a bun, a folder tucked under her arm. Cassian came last, in dark slacks and a plain jacket. He nodded to the receptionist, then stepped into the room like a man done playing someone else's son. Geneva looked at him, then at Ira. Her voice was soft. "You've changed." Ira sat without replying. Geneva looked to her son. "Are you here to speak for her?" Cassian answered flatly, "I'm here to listen." Ira placed the folder on the table. "You called Kayla's school." Geneva said nothing. "You told them I was unstable, that I was using my daughter to manipulate your son." Still nothing. "You tried to break something you didn't build." Geneva finally spoke. Calm, unbothered. "I protected a legacy." "No," Ira said. "You claimed ownership over people you couldn't control. And when I didn't fold, you moved to destroy a child." Geneva's fingers tapped the table once. "She's not your shield, Ira. You made a choice to leave. You don't get to rewrite history because your plan didn't work. I didn't leave. You forced me out." Ira opened the folder, slid a printed document across the table. Cassian looked between them, tension in his shoulders. Geneva read the paper. It was a sworn affidavit from one of her former security detail. The same man who had been instructed to escort Ms. Callan out of the building and ensure she didn't return. Her eyes flicked upward. Ira's voice didn't rise. "I kept receipts. I stayed quiet because I didn't want war. But you made this personal." Geneva scoffed. "Don't talk about war like you know how it's fought." Ira leaned forward. "I'm not here to fight you." Pause. "I'm here to end you." The words hung in the air. Cassian blinked. Geneva's face twitched. Ira continued. "I filed a claim. Not for money, not for press, for truth. You manipulated HR records, pressured me to disappear, interfered with my daughter's education. This isn't about Cassian. This is about Kayla. And I won't let you pretend she's not real." Geneva folded her arms. "You think you scare me?" "No," Ira said. "I think I threaten everything you thought was permanent." She stood. "I didn't raise my daughter in wealth. I raised her in dignity. That's something you've never owned." Cassian rose beside her. "She's telling the truth." Geneva's eyes met her son's. Cold, hollow. "I gave you everything." "No," Cassian replied. "You gave me a cage." They left. No shouting, no guards, just silence. And for Geneva, that was worse. The press got wind of the legal motion within days. Not because Ira leaked it, because someone inside Geneva's circle did. The narrative turned fast. Public sympathy moved to Ira, to Kayla, to the girl who was erased, the mother who was threatened, the father who finally chose truth over inheritance. Geneva tried to contain it, but the internet had moved on from her kind of power. This wasn't a numbers story anymore. This was personal, and people were watching. At home, Ira curled up on the couch as Cassian read to Kayla from a book he used to love as a boy. And the fox said, "To keep something safe, you must let it be free." Kayla blinked sleepily. "That's silly," she murmured. "Foxes don't talk." Cassian smiled. "Maybe this one does." Ira watched him, her heart full and sore. When Kayla finally dozed off, Ira whispered, "You don't have to keep choosing me." Cassian turned to her. "I'm not choosing you." He slid closer. "I'm choosing us." He kissed her. Slow, certain, no cameras, no empire, just warmth, and a little girl breathing softly in the next room. Ira didn't want revenge. She wanted independence. For years, she'd been cast in Geneva's story as the girl who snuck in through the back door and corrupted the air. Then she was erased like a typo in a corporate memo. Now the world knew the truth. But Ira didn't want to react to Geneva anymore. She wanted to create something that stood on its own, and she knew exactly where to start. It began with a phone call to someone from her old life, Elira Vaughan, a former colleague from Ira's design internship days. Back then, they'd shared too many late nights drawing floor plans for clients who never saw them, whispering dreams about a firm that respected people, not profits. Elira had gone on to start her own boutique firm in Austin. It was growing fast, purposeful, female-led. Ira had followed their work quietly from a distance. Now, she asked for a meeting, not as a favor, as a partner. Cassian watched from across the coffee shop as Ira spoke confidently, hands moving as she outlined her vision. Sustainable builds, community-centered development, a new kind of urban design that blended utility with beauty. "I don't want to create for billionaires who treat land like chessboards," Ira said. "I want to build for people who live in what we draw." Elira smiled. "You've always had that fire." Ira nodded. "Now I have the reason." Elira didn't hesitate. "You're in." By the end of the week, Ira signed on as a co-lead in a new expansion office opening in Chicago. The firm released a press statement, not about the veils, not about scandal, just a clean, powerful line. Ira Callan joins 5 Studio as lead designer of community impact. Cassian read it that night and smiled. "She's finally yours." Ira looked up from her laptop. "Who? Your name?" She closed the screen. "She always was." They moved again. Not to another temporary apartment, not to a borrowed penthouse. They bought a modest 2-story home just outside the city, with a garden out back, a sunroom for Kayla's art, a kitchen where Ira could burn soup and Cassian could pretend to fix it. It wasn't big, but it was theirs. No headlines, no staff, just roots. And that was the most powerful thing Geneva couldn't destroy. One Sunday morning, while Ira sketched by the window and Kayla played with colored pencils, Cassian walked in holding an envelope. "What's that?" Ira asked. He handed it to her. She opened it slowly. Inside, a notarized document, full joint custody, signed by Geneva Vale. No condition, no negotiation, just quiet closure. Ira stared at the signature. Precise, cold. She looked up at Cassian. "She's done?" She knows she can't win. Ira placed the paper on the table. She never won. She only delayed. Cassian took her hand. You never needed her approval. Now the world knows it too. Later that day, Kayla drew a picture of their family. It wasn't fancy. Just stick figures. One with long hair, one with short, and one smaller figure in between, holding both their hands. Above it, she wrote, "My home, my name." Ira didn't frame it. She taped it to the fridge, because some victories don't need gold edges, just magnets and quiet pride. Cassian had always believed his purpose was written in stone, veil stone, laid deep in the foundations of Chicago's skyline. But standing in a small sunlit home with pencil drawings on the fridge, and a woman who didn't ask for a spotlight, he realized something. Maybe legacy wasn't about towers and board seats. Maybe it was about peace, and he hadn't known peace until Ira. So he asked himself a question. What now? It started with a quiet morning. Cassian sat at the dining table, coffee in hand, flipping through a binder Ira had left open the night before. It was filled with sketches and community reports for her firm's first project under her lead, a multi-purpose green space in a low-income neighborhood on the south side. He was flipping through design drafts when Kayla climbed into his lap and looked at the paper. "What's that building for?" "It's a library," he said. "Your mom's team is helping to design it." She pointed to a corner. "That part looks like a flower." Cassian smiled. "That's her style. She likes soft edges." He paused, then asked the question out loud, though he hadn't meant to. "Should I go back to designing too?" Kayla tilted her head. "You used to." He nodded. "Before I became too busy being my mother's son." Kayla pressed her finger to the page. "You should draw again. Mommy says when you build nice things you feel nice inside." He looked at her. It was that simple. That week, Cassian met with an old mentor, someone from his early architectural training days, before Geneva funneled him into executive roles. They met at a tucked-away design studio with exposed beams and the smell of fresh plaster. "I thought you forgot us," the man joked. Cassian smiled faintly. "I forgot who I was." He rolled out a rough sketch he'd been working on late at night. The mentor looked over it in silence, then nodded slowly. "You still have it?" Cassian asked to join a local design collective. No big names, no press, no equity, just purpose. They welcomed him in with little fanfare, and that's exactly what he wanted. Back home, he found Ira on the floor of Kayla's room, helping her color a cardboard dollhouse. "How's the empire?" she teased, wiping a crayon smudge off her cheek. He knelt beside her. "I applied to design public parks." She blinked. "You did? Low-budget projects, unbranded, just build and restore." Ira studied his face. He wasn't doing it for image or redemption. He just wanted to work with his hands. "I'm proud of you," she said. He smiled softly. "I think I'm finally proud of me too." Weeks passed. Ira's firm broke ground on their first project. Cassian's team started a local garden redesign near a battered schoolyard. They'd wake up early, share quiet breakfasts, pack Kayla's school snacks together. Some days were chaotic, some were dull, but there was no stage to perform on, no cameras to hide from, and somehow that made everything feel real. Then came the speaking offer. Ira was invited to speak at a local Women in Design summit, not for gossip, not for a tell-all, but for her impact. She hesitated. "I'm not a public speaker," she told Cassian. "You're a mother who survived and rebuilt. That doesn't mean I can talk into a mic without throwing up." Cassian chuckled. "Want me to stand in the back with flashcards?" Ira raised an eyebrow. "You'll just smirk the whole time. Not if you pay me in leftovers." They laughed. But deep down, Ira knew he was right. This was bigger than her now. The day of the summit, she wore navy slacks, a simple blouse, and a gold bracelet Kayla had picked out from a flea market for luck. The room held maybe 100 people, mostly women, a few students, a few industry veterans. She spoke slowly, honestly, about losing her job, about walking away without telling the man she loved that she was carrying his child, about being forced into silence, and about building a life not from bitterness, but from intention. "I was erased on paper," she said, "but I was never invisible to my daughter. And now I refuse to be invisible to myself." When she stepped off stage, the room stood. No flashbulbs, no applause breaks, just quiet respect. And in the back, Cassian stood, arms folded, eyes full. That night, they tucked Kayla in and sat on the front porch. It was cool, breezy. The kind of night that made you feel like you were finally doing life right. Ira leaned her head on Cassian's shoulder. I used to think we had to fight for space in her world. We don't, he said. We just had to build our own. You miss any of it? He thought for a moment. I miss the illusion. The version of success that looked good in articles. He paused. But this version? The one where I get to kiss you goodnight, eat burnt cookies and hold Kayla when she has nightmares? He looked at her. I'll take this legacy. Ira smiled. So will I. Inside the house, Kayla's latest drawing sat on the fridge beside her spelling homework. 3 figures stood beneath a house with a heart over the roof. She had written 3 words in colorful block letters. We built this, and no one could take that away. The email came on a Wednesday morning. Ira was making breakfast, Kayla humming at the table, Cassian trying and failing to make pancakes that didn't burn, when her phone buzzed. She almost ignored it until she saw the name. Lennox Graves, a name she hadn't heard in 6 years, a name Cassian never liked. She clicked. Ira, I'm reaching out with an opportunity I think you'll want to hear. The foundation has changed. We're building something better. I'd like you to lead the Chicago vertical. Think about it. No press, no Geneva, no strings. Lunch? Friday? Lennox. She stared at the screen. Cassian glanced over. Everything okay? Ira locked the phone. Just an old contact. I'll explain later. Lennox Graves used to work under Geneva, until he didn't. He had been one of the only men on the executive team who didn't treat Ira like a disposable shadow. Back then, he was quiet, methodical, respectful. But when Geneva started pushing Ira out, he stayed silent, too afraid to lose his place. Now, years later, he was resurfacing and offering something tempting. Ira told Cassian that night. They were folding laundry. Taylor had fallen asleep early, worn out from school and dance practice. The house was quiet. Lennox emailed, she said. Cassian paused. What does he want? He says he's part of a new firm, a foundation, with funding, vision. He wants me to lead something, take over the Chicago branch of a citywide design and social development initiative. Cassian's jaw worked. Under him? No, with him. But yes, he's involved. Cassian's voice was calm. Too calm. You trust him? No. He nodded slowly. But I want to hear what it is. Friday afternoon. Ira sat across from Lennox in a quiet restaurant in the West Loop. No cameras, no veiled staff, just 2 people with a history sitting between them. You look good, Lennox said. Stronger. I had to be, she replied. He leaned in. I meant what I wrote. This isn't Geneva's game. I cut ties with her 2 years ago. We're doing real work now. Affordable housing, city redevelopment, local architecture teams. I want you on this because you're the only person I know who won't sell the work for a press quote. Ira sipped her tea. What's the catch? No catch. But it's a high visibility role, and given your name that will stir things. My name or my past? He didn't flinch. Both. Ira stared out the window. This job would make me visible again. To investors, clients, the press. He nodded. You'd be the face of something meaningful. A platform. You deserve that. She looked at him. No more secrets. No more Geneva. She believed him. But belief wasn't trust. She told Cassian that night. They sat on the porch again. A habit they'd formed when life got heavy. He's offering something real, she said. And not for charity. For credibility. Cassian was silent. Ira, I'll support you if this is what you want. But I also know what that world does. I've watched it chew people up and sell their dignity as success stories. She nodded. I don't want to lose what we've built. Then don't forget who you are when you walk into the room. She turned toward him. Do you think I'm strong enough? I think you're the strongest person I've ever met. Ira smiled. Then she leaned against his shoulder. I'm scared. So was I when I walked away from my mother. She looked at him. You didn't walk away. You chose something better. He kissed her temple. So will you? That night, Ira lay awake beside him. The offer wasn't about power. It was about voice, and she was tired of being defined by someone else's silence. Ira said yes, but she set her own terms. She would lead the Chicago vertical of the new foundation, but not as a figurehead. She'd have design control, staffing power, and final say on community partnerships. No press until results spoke. No manipulation, no influence from the old guard. Lennox agreed. And within a month, she was in a new office. It wasn't marble and glass like Vale Properties. It was a converted warehouse with open ceilings, exposed brick, and the smell of old metal filing cabinets. But it was honest. Ira decorated her desk with Kayla's drawings and a photo of Cassian holding their daughter at the lakeshore. She belonged. On the day she held her first team meeting, Geneva Vale showed up unannounced. Ira was reviewing site maps when the receptionist buzzed. "There's someone here to see you. No appointment. Says her name is Geneva Vale." Ira froze for 3 seconds, then stood. "I'll meet her outside." Geneva hadn't aged. Not visibly. She wore a beige coat, black gloves, and dark glasses. Ira stepped into the lobby, heels silent against concrete. "You're not on the visitor list," she said. Geneva removed her glasses. "I know." Ira folded her arms. "What do you want?" Geneva looked around. "This is where you ended up." Ira nodded. "It's where I chose to be." Geneva's eyes moved to the workers behind the glass, then back to Ira. "You used to walk behind my son in silence. Now, I walk ahead of my own name." Geneva's mouth twitched. "You won. I lost. But let's not pretend we're equals." "We're not," Ira said. "I don't need to burn anyone to prove I exist." Geneva stepped closer. "I didn't come here to fight." "Then why?" "To warn you." Ira tilted her head. "About what?" "Lennox," she said. "He's not who you think he is." Ira's voice didn't waver. "He left you." "No. He repositioned himself." Geneva's tone sharpened. "He's building power by attaching himself to women with broken stories. First me. Now you." Ira studied her. "I'm not broken." Geneva raised an eyebrow. "Then you're the first." The conversation ended there. Ira didn't let her in. She didn't take her seriously. But something lingered. That night, she told Cassian everything. He sat on the couch, hands steepled, thinking. "She's manipulating again," he said, "trying to create fear or distance." Ira sighed. "I know. Do you trust Lennox?" "I trust the work." Cassian looked at her. "But do you trust him?" Ira didn't answer right away. Over the next few weeks, the foundation grew. Ira's project gained traction. Her team expanded. She became a name again, but this time for the right reasons. She hosted design charrettes in underserved neighborhoods, worked alongside young architects of color, built play parks near schools that hadn't seen new paint in years. The city took notice, but so did the press. And one afternoon, an article surfaced, unsigned, vague, but familiar. It hinted at connections between Ira Callan's new employer and historic corporate misconduct. Cassian sent it to her with one line. "This is how it starts." Ira didn't run. She didn't hide. She requested a meeting with Lennox. And she asked him directly, "What is this?" Lennox looked exhausted. "It's backlash. It's inevitable." "From where?" "From people who are afraid you have a voice again." She looked at him harder. "Did Geneva plant this?" "I don't know. Do you still talk to her?" He hesitated. Then finally, "No." Ira nodded slowly, but she didn't fully believe him. At home, Cassian noticed the change. She was quieter, more careful. He waited until Kayla was asleep, then asked gently, "You okay?" Ira looked at him. "I want to be." He pulled her into his arms. "You're allowed to want peace and still feel shaken." She rested her head against him. "I just never expected peace to be this hard." That weekend, they drove to a lake cabin. No phones, no laptops, just the three of them. Kyla drew butterflies and ran through leaves. Cassian grilled. Ira read on the porch. They laughed, slept in. Let the weight of ambitions slide off their backs. It was the first time in months they didn't talk about careers. They talked about birthdays, about schools, about painting the guest room yellow. As they packed to leave, Ira stood by the lake. Cassian came beside her. "Are you going to leave the foundation?" Ira shook her head. "No, even if it gets louder." She turned to him. "Let it get loud." She looked back at the water. "They've tried to erase me, use me, define me. But now," she said, taking his hand, "I write my own story." And he smiled, because he knew she already was. The letter arrived by mail, an actual envelope, stamped, no digital signature, no PR watermark. Cassian opened it while Ira was making tea, the early morning light casting soft shadows through the kitchen blinds. He read the first 2 lines and stilled. Ira noticed. "What is it?" He passed the letter to her. She scanned it and froze. "The Vale Family Trust requests your presence for a formal review of succession. Protocol following recent board resignations and structural transitions." She looked up. "They want you back?" He nodded once. "They want me to inherit the holding company. Fully." Ira blinked. "I thought you walked away from all of it." "I did." He pointed at the last line. "In absence of qualified successors and upon consensus vote, legal right reverts to bloodline heir per the original charter." "Which means you," Ira whispered. Cassian exhaled. "I didn't ask for it. I didn't even know some of the board had stepped down." Ira's voice was calm but careful. "Do you want it?" Cassian didn't answer. That night, after Kayla was asleep, they sat in the living room with the envelope on the coffee table between them. Ira spoke first. "If you step back into that seat, everything changes again." Cassian nodded. "I know. You'll be in rooms where people expect the old you. I remember who that was. I didn't like him." Ira touched his hand. "Then don't let them rebuild him." He met her eyes. "I wouldn't go back for power. I'd go back for correction. You want to fix it? Maybe not all of it. But if I inherit the seat, I choose the next one. I set new rules. I can protect what they once used to break people like you." Ira was quiet. Then she said softly, "You're not responsible for Geneva's empire." "No. But I'm responsible for what Kayla reads about our name one day." The next morning, Cassian met with a lawyer. Not one of Geneva's. A quiet, smart young woman named Vale Temi, sharp-witted, sharp-dressed, and unafraid of the Vale name. "I've seen the trust," she said. "The clause is real. If you accept, you become managing trustee and public face again. But," she paused, "there's room to restructure, rebrand. You could turn the holding company into something new, less empire, more equity." Cassian leaned back. "I don't want her shadow." Vale shrugged. "Then make sure yours is taller." He brought the documents home. Ira looked through them with him, page by page, line by line. No one pressured, no urgency. They read slowly, while Kayla danced to music in the background, and occasionally interrupted with snack requests and dinosaur facts. When they finished, Ira turned to him. "You could give her a legacy she's proud of." Cassian looked at her. "I only want it if you're beside me." Ira nodded once. "Then we do it our way." The foundation issued a joint statement 2 weeks later. Cassian Vale accepts successor rights with intent to reform and restructure Vale Holdings into a platform for restorative architecture, public investment and family accountability. He will serve as managing trustee alongside a newly formed board of independent advisors. Ira Callan Vale will lead the Urban Renewal Division. No press conference, no dramatic visuals, just a new page, one they wrote themselves. The boardroom was colder than he remembered. Sleek glass table, polished concrete walls, the same skyline view, but it felt different now. Cassian walked in without an entourage, without a tailored script, and without Geneva's shadow stretching behind him. Ira stood just outside, holding Kayla's hand. They weren't allowed in the boardroom until his appointment was official. But they didn't need to be. He carried them with him now. In his voice, in his choices, in his spine. 12 men and women waited, Some older, former loyalists to Geneva. Some newer, invited in to help balance the transition optics. Cassian took his seat at the head of the table. One man coughed awkwardly. "Cassian, thank you for coming." Cassian didn't smile. "I'm not here to entertain. I'm here to decide." A woman 3 seats down cleared her throat. "We hope this won't be hostile. The trust does place you in full authority, yes, but we'd like to maintain a collaborative approach to—" "You don't set the tone anymore," Cassian cut in calmly. There was a pause. "You had your era," he continued. "You protected an image. You ran people out who didn't play by Geneva's rules. And you watched while the company silenced the truth. That ends today." Another voice, older, firm. "Are you seeking revenge?" "No," Cassian said. "I'm building what this place should have been all along." He stood. "I'll retain the name, Vale Holdings, for one reason only. Because I want my daughter to see what healing looks like when it carries the same banner that once tried to bury her existence." He paused. "If you can't accept that direction, I'll buy you out." Silence followed. But no one stood against him. Not this time. Outside the boardroom, Ira knelt to Kayla's level. "Daddy's doing something important," she whispered. Kayla nodded, holding her coloring book. "Does it make him nervous?" Ira smiled. "A little. Can I give him my drawing when he's done?" "Yes, baby. You can." When Cassian stepped out, he found them sitting quietly, Ira looking out the window, Kayla coloring blue flowers into the outline of a skyline. She looked up. "You done?" He nodded. "It's ours now." Ira stood. "You mean yours?" He shook his head. "I mean, ours." They walked together down the long corridor of glass and marble that used to feel too big, too clean, too scripted. But this time, it felt like an empty canvas. Over the following months, Cassian restructured the company from its bones. Gone were the offshore accounts that filtered through shell charities. Gone were the performance bonuses tied to public image management. He brought in Ira's firm to consult on all community-facing development. He offered paid internships to students from underfunded schools. He reopened contracts with vendors Geneva had dropped when they demanded better pay. Some called it disruptive. He called it overdue. The press came knocking. They wanted photos, commentaries, sit-down interviews. He declined them all, except one, a documentary-style feature for a women-led media group. They asked to highlight Ira's journey. She agreed, on one condition. Kyla would be included, not as a prop, as a person. On the day of filming, Cassian watched from behind the camera as Ira spoke softly into the microphone. She wore a deep green blazer, no makeup but lip balm, and held Kayla's hand the entire time. "People assumed I wanted to take down a billionaire family," she said, "but I only ever wanted to protect mine." Later, when asked how she felt seeing her husband take back the company that once erased her, she didn't hesitate. He didn't reclaim it for pride. He reclaimed it so our daughter would never grow up in the shadow of someone else's silence. That night, after Kayla had gone to bed, Cassian brought Ira a cup of tea. She curled up on the couch, hair loose around her shoulders. He sat beside her. "You were incredible." She smiled without looking up. "So were you?" He touched her hand. "I watched them respect you. They should have, but now they do, because you never bent." Ira leaned against him. "We're doing something rare." "What's that?" "We're teaching her that legacy isn't inheritance, it's choice." Cassian let out a soft breath. "I never thought I'd want to lead again." "You didn't want to lead." She looked at him. "You wanted to protect." He nodded. "And now I want to build." The next day, Kayla brought home a school assignment titled My Family Tree. She showed it to Ira and Cassian proudly. There were 3 figures, one short, one tall, one taller. Each had a crown drawn in crayon. "Why do we all have crowns?" Ira asked, smiling. Kayla shrugged. "Because we fixed everything." Cassian kissed her forehead, and Ira framed the drawing. "Because sometimes the biggest victories live in the smallest moments." The event was held in the grand atrium of the new Public Learning and Tech Center, formerly a Vail Holdings development site. Now, it was the first of Cassian and Ira's restructured legacy projects, equal access digital labs, a library, child-safe indoor gardens, and creative co-working spaces for underserved communities. Ira had named the main wing the Kaela Center, not after herself, after her daughter. The press was already calling it the most meaningful thing the Vail name has touched in decades. But Ira didn't care about headlines. She cared about presence, impact, real use. The launch day was bright, chilly, packed with local families, students, civic leaders, and donors. Journalists lingered near the press section but kept their distance. Per Ira's request, this wasn't a circus. It was a beginning. And then she saw her, Geneva Vail, walking in through the front doors like she owned the blueprints. Ira didn't flinch. Cassian, standing beside her in a simple suit, squeezed her hand. "I didn't invite her." "I know. Do you want her escorted out?" Ira stared ahead as Geneva slowly moved through the crowd, wearing grey gloves, a cream coat, and that look of regal precision that made people hesitate without knowing why. "No," Ira said. Cassian blinked. "She won't interrupt this," Ira added. "Not today." Geneva didn't approach. She stood at the back of the crowd, eyes fixed on the stage. Her presence was quiet, but everyone noticed. Ira walked up to the podium anyway. She adjusted the mic, cleared her throat, and started to speak. "This building is about access," she began. "Access to safety, to knowledge, to light. But above all, to dignity." She paused. "For too long, cities have built upward for the privileged and outward for profit. But rarely do they build inward, for the heart of their communities." She looked over the audience. Her voice stayed even. "My name is Ira Callan Vail. I'm a designer, a mother, a partner, and a woman who knows what it feels like to be told to stay quiet." The crowd hushed deeper. "I was erased from this company once, but I didn't come back for revenge. I came back because silence is inherited, unless someone breaks it." People started clapping. Ira held steady. "I hope this center makes noise, not with volume, but with voices, with children asking hard questions, with mothers speaking up, with architects designing without apology." She looked out, eyes landing on Geneva, just for a second. "I didn't reclaim anything. I built what was never given, and now I give it away freely." The room erupted, not in frenzy, but in something deeper, recognition. Geneva didn't clap. She turned away, walked out the same way she came. Cassian watched her go. He didn't follow. Ira didn't look back. Because some victories don't need confrontation. They only need witnesses. Later that afternoon, Cassian found Ira standing in the Kaela Center library, watching children explore touchscreens and art tables. He wrapped his arms around her from behind. "She heard you." Ira nodded. She couldn't undo it, because it wasn't hers to break anymore. She turned, pressing her head against his chest. "This wasn't a war." "No," Cassian agreed. "It was an inheritance taken back." Kyla ran up to them. "Mummy, can I show you my favorite room?" Ira smiled, wiping a tear she hadn't noticed fall. "Always." And the three of them walked forward. No spotlight, no fanfare, just footsteps toward the life they chose, hand in hand. The letter came from the mayor's office, delivered by hand. Gold seal, formal envelope. Ira opened it on a Tuesday morning while clearing out her inbox. Xayla was at school, Cassian was in a meeting, and the house was filled with sunlight and quiet. She unfolded the heavy paper. It read, "You are being considered for the city's Humanitarian Design Award in recognition of your work revitalizing underserved neighborhoods, promoting equity-driven architecture, and advancing inclusive access to public resources. If selected, you will be the first woman to receive this award in 2 decades, and the first former whistleblower tied to a corporate power scandal to ever be nominated." Ira sat back and stared at the ceiling. The past had finally come full circle. When she told Cassian that night, he didn't smile at first. He listened. "Do you want it?" he asked. She folded the letter again. "That's the thing. I don't know." "Because of Geneva?" "No," she said. "Because of me." He leaned forward. "Say more." Ira exhaled. "I've worked for years to make my name mean something, outside of what I escaped. This would link my journey to that narrative again. Publicly. Forever." "You're worried they'll see the woman who stood in front of a broken empire," Cassian said. "I'm worried they won't see the woman who stood back up and built her own." He reached across the table and took her hand. "You're both." Ira looked at him. What if Kayla reads about this one day and sees pain before she sees power? Cassian smiled gently. "She already sees power. She calls you Mom." The next day, Ira declined the nomination, not in defiance, in direction. She sent a handwritten reply. "Thank you for the consideration. I am honored, truly. But I believe recognition is not always measured in applause. Sometimes it's measured in the communities we serve and the children we raise. Let this award go to someone who has not yet been seen. I've had my stage. I want to spend the rest of my work building platforms for others to stand taller." The office called her to reconsider. She politely declined again. A week later, she received another letter. This time from a design student who attended her summit speech months earlier. "I'm the daughter of a single mom. I grew up in housing projects. I thought architecture was for people who wore suits and inherited buildings. Then I saw you speak, and you didn't try to sell anything. You just told the truth. And I decided right then, I want to build too. I don't know if I'll ever win anything. But if I do, it'll be because someone like you said it was possible." Ira read it twice, then sat alone on the porch and cried quietly for the first time in months. Not from pain, from confirmation. She hadn't needed the award. She'd already passed the torch. That night, Cassian came home with pizza and 2 paper crowns Kayla had made at school. "She said you're the queen of buildings," he said, placing one gently on Ira's head. Ira laughed. "She's not wrong." Cassian grinned. "She also said her castle needs a new library." "I'll get on that," Ira replied, smiling against his shoulder. In a quiet home, with the child they once thought they'd lost, and the peace they never imagined they'd find, Ira sat back and knew this was her legacy. Not headlines, not ceremonies, but this moment, built, earned, undeniable. It started with a bedtime question. Kayla was nestled under a patchwork blanket, her stuffed lion curled beside her, hair frizzy from a day of playground wind. Cassian sat on the edge of the bed, reading from her favorite book. Ira stood at the doorway, watching, arms folded, half listening. Kayla interrupted midway through the story. "Daddy?" Cassian looked up. "Yes, baby." She hesitated. "Are you and Mommy really married?" Ira blinked. Cassian lowered the book. "Yes, we are." Taylor frowned. "But I didn't see it." "You didn't see the wedding?" She shook her head. No pictures, no dress, no cake. Ira walked in and sat on the other side of the bed. "You were born after it happened, sweetheart." Kayla nodded. "But I want to see it." Cassian looked at Ira. Ira raised an eyebrow. "You want to see what?" "A wedding. Yours. Ours." She paused. "Can we do it again? But with me there this time?" Cassian let out a breath. Ira smiled slowly. "We'll think about it." But by the time they kissed her goodnight, it was already decided. They kept it small. No media, no cathedral. Just a backyard garden, simple fairy lights, and 30 people who had witnessed their undoing and their return. Ira wore a soft ivory dress, minimal makeup, curls loose around her shoulders. Cassian wore a dark grey suit with no tie and 2 vows written by hand in his inside pocket. Taylor wore a flower crown. She danced barefoot across the grass, running between folding chairs, telling everyone it was her day too. No one argued. They knew she was right. Ira stood across from Cassian, barefoot in the grass. No podium, just them. He took her hand. "I married you in silence once," he said. "Now I want to say it in front of the world we built." Ira smiled. I left because I thought love couldn't survive power, but you taught me love is power when it's chosen. They didn't promise riches or forever. They promised honesty, warmth, to keep building, brick by brick, truth by truth. When they kissed, Kayla clapped louder than everyone else. That evening, after everyone had gone, the three of them stayed outside under the string lights. Cassian pulled Ira into a quiet dance. Kayla spun around them, laughing. Ira rested her head on his shoulder. "No empire," she whispered. "No empire," he repeated. "Just this." 1 year later, the Kayla Center buzzed with life. Children sprinted through the indoor garden trails. Volunteers taught coding to teens. Mothers gathered near the reading lounge with babies on their hips. Ira stood in the hallway, watching quietly. It didn't need her to function anymore. And that, she thought, was the sign of something built right. Cassian walked up beside her, carrying coffee and a folder. "You're doing that look again," he said. "What look?" "I'm proud but also too humble to say it." "Look," Ira smirked. "Maybe I'm just tired." He handed her the coffee. "Or maybe you created something so real it outgrew your name." She sipped, then nodded toward the door. "Kayla's in the art room. She said she's making you a CEO badge out of glitter." Cassian laughed. "She's obsessed with titles now." Ira glanced at him. "She gets that from your mother." They both laughed harder than they expected. Later that afternoon, as Kayla napped in the library nook, Ira returned to her office to find a letter waiting on her desk. No return name. Just one line written on the outside of the envelope. "I was wrong." Inside was a short note, written in tight, clean script. "Ira, I watched your wedding from the edge. I stood in silence because I didn't know how to speak to someone who survived me. You raised a daughter with more strength than I ever taught my son. That humbles me. No more threats, no more visits, just this final word. Respect. You didn't replace me. You became what I never dared to be. G." Ira folded the letter slowly. She didn't cry, didn't rage. She simply placed it in her drawer and closed it. Because some closure doesn't need a second act. It only needs distance. That evening, the three of them returned to the Kayla Center one last time before a small renovation began. The sun was setting. The halls were quiet. Kayla skipped between her parents, holding both their hands. "I want to make a new sign for the front," she said. "What should it say?" Cassian asked. Kayla thought hard, then smiled. "The place love built." Ira blinked, her eyes warm. Cassian nodded slowly. "That sounds like the truth." They stood at the main glass wall as evening light spilled across the tiles. Ira leaned into Cassian's side. "We never planned any of this," she whispered. "I know," he replied. "But we stayed." She looked up at him. "We survived." He smiled. "We lived." Kayla leaned against both of them, yawning into Ira's shoulder, and with one hand resting over her daughter's back and the other in her. Husbands. Ira Callan Vale knew the answer she'd spent years chasing. It wasn't about whether her name belonged. It was about how she made it matter. And now, she had everything. Not from inheritance, but from intention. If you believe real legacy is built through love, not power. If you believe peace is a choice, not a gift. And if you know that silence can be broken, not with noise but with truth, then this story was meant for you. Comment your favorite chapter or moment below. Share this with someone who needs to be reminded that what's quietly built often lasts the longest. And subscribe for more powerful stories that speak straight to the heart. This is Mr. Charles Stories. We don't just tell love stories. We tell the truth behind what it means to fight for it.